Are you looking to become a landlord in the state of Florida and want to know what it's like from a landlord's perspective to own property in the state of Florida? Well, today I want to do that, as I am a landlord, and I'm going to take you into a property that just became empty and share that whole process of being a landlord here in Florida. Well, first off, let me introduce myself. My name is Troy Funk, and that's Funk, F-U-N-K, Fun K. I am a licensed real estate broker in the state of Florida. I've been in sales and I've been a resident of Florida going on 40 years. And I want to give you some value. And if I give you value in this video, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber, and certainly hit that bell so we can stay in touch. So, giving value on my insight as a landlord. Now, I have owned 18 rental properties here, and I learned a lot. I learned that the rental business is a business. When you own a rental property, you own a business, and you're buying into a business, and you have to take a lot of your emotion out of that. Now, I started my journey as a landlord when I was young. I purchased my first property actually in Bradenton, Florida at the age of 21. And then a few years later, I had a brand new home built and kept that first house. That first house became a rental home. Now, that first house is always an emotional home. It's your first home. It's a home we lived in. We improved. We put a lot of our personal self in that property. And then we turned it into a rental property. Well, the home is never the same. After you live there and you move out and somebody else moves in, it's just not the same. It's not that same spirit that you came into the home. It's now a business. After we rented that home, the first tenant was a very good tenant and took care of the house. The second tenant, not so much. And it was a little jolting because, you know, here was our home that we loved, and now it's been destroyed, and we had to fix it up and put it back on the market. Well, you get over it. It's a business, right? The house is an asset. We had a mortgage to pay. We need a renter in there to cover the rent. Repairs had to be made. We can get upset all day long that somebody destroyed our house, our first home, but you know, it's a business, and we fixed it up and put it back on the market for rent. From that point, I kept buying rental properties. I had a couple homes on the water, a couple homes on Venice Island. I had a lot of assets, and it was a real interesting journey being a landlord of that many properties because so many things happened. Well, what's interesting is I had no idea when I became a landlord that Florida is a good state to own rental property. And why? Well, basically because the laws favor landlords to a great degree. If you have a tenant that's not paying their rent, you can evict them. It's not that difficult here in Florida. Now, I've done evictions by myself, and I've had attorneys do the eviction, and I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to stroke that check and have the attorney do the eviction for you. I've had most of my evictions have gone very well, and I've had one that turned into a lawsuit that lasted over a year, but the tenant still had to pay rent. And the situation with that was I bought a property that already had a tenant in place. I became the new owner. I inherited the tenant. I inherited the nightmare tenant, which is why I got such a good value on that property. But the eviction on that tenant with this lease was real problematic, and it took me a year to evict that tenant. That was the worst case scenario as a landlord here in Florida. Best case scenario, I normally don't have a problem with tenants. They typically pay their rent, and if they don't pay their rent, we try to kindly work out an agreement. And as a landlord, I have a couple options. I could offer them cash for keys, which is a way of saying, I'll give you a little bit of money to move out, or we can go through an eviction. So I try to be sympathetic to the tenant because I've been there. I understand the challenges, but I'm also a business person. I want to make sure that I'm covering my expenses, and the rental business is a business, and a lot of people don't understand that. I'm going to take you into this property that I am going to put on the market right now for rent, and I haven't seen it in maybe the last 6 months, so I'm not really sure what we're going to look into. But I will tell you, the rental market here in Sarasota, Florida is intense. We have a lot more renters looking for homes than homes that are available. And this house in particular has a lot of good attributes to it. Number one, it's in an area that's actually become very desirable in Sarasota. It has a little fenced backyard. So if a tenant has a pet or multiple pets, no problem. It's not deed restricted. So if they want to put their camper in the front yard, not a problem. So it opens it up to a lot of possibilities for somebody looking for a home in this area. The house is going to be very small, and you may be a little surprised at how much rent this house will bring, but the market dictates the value of the rent. So we'll look at this little home, and on this journey I'm going to show you what I do to try to rent this property, go through the process of approving the tenants, and then finally signing a lease and getting this property back into production income wise so the mortgage gets paid. So I hope you find this interesting as we move forward into looking at what's possible in being a landlord here in Florida. So you can see this is a little home, but this is on a good street. It's on a good location. The homes around here have improved greatly since I purchased the property. Feels that there's more owners in here than renters, which has evolved. Now there was a vacant lot that was on the market, and that home, there was a home built on that property, and I think the sale on that house was about $370,000. So that's a lot more than I paid for this. But you can see the area is improving, and what's neat about this location is you are close to the airport. You're also in a real pretty area. There's a area called the Succulent Gardens just down the street where they sell plants, and they get a lot of activity, and the area in general is pretty. It's close to Sarasota. So this house, there's a front little patio. You can see it needs some TLC, but the opportunity for somebody could be, it's a nice house. So we walk in. When the tenants moved in, I gave them new carpet. The carpet's not bad, but it definitely needs to be cleaned. And you can see it's small, but has good potential. Definitely needs a little bit of TLC on the paint. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. Second bedroom. The one thing the film doesn't show you is the floor is spongy. This is all on wood floors, which is not ideal in Florida, but you'll see in an older home. So the kitchen, I have to go back on the pictures. I thought there was a dishwasher there. I'm sure I just didn't leave that space there. And I don't know about the refrigerator, but obviously this needs some help. I think the best feature here is the backyard. This is all fenced. So a new owner, or not owner, a new tenant could come in here and have pets, have a garden. There are no deed restrictions here, so people kind of do their own thing. You can see there's actually a camper in the backyard of the other home behind us. They have gardens, and there's an area for the washer and dryer in the backyard. So, you know, it's a little bit of a challenge here, but this is a entry-level house here in Sarasota. So let's see what we can rent this house for. So what do you think I paid for that property in June of 2015? Well, if you guessed $22,500, you're right. And that was the price that I purchased the property. And it was at a real estate auction. The property was listed, and it was a bank-owned property. And this is how that worked. I specialized in bank-owned properties, and I was selling about 100 properties a year for the bank. But one of the rules was I could not purchase my own listings. So I had to purchase listings that were not mine, right? Well, my business partner at the time, Robert, had this property listed, and it was a bank auction, and I ended up being the high bidder. And I went back to the office and I told Robert, I am buying your property here on 42nd Street. And he said, oh, you're buying the flea shack, right? And he was right. This property was full of fleas. So how did I get such a good value? Well, a lot of people argued I didn't get such a good value when I bought that property because the lot next to it, or just a couple down, was on the market for $25,000, vacant lot, and I bought this property with a house on it for $22,500, but the house was a wreck. And the way I could describe this house, and I don't want to get gross, but I just kind of give an analogy. Have you ever been into a restaurant and you need to use a restroom and you go in the stall and somebody just didn't flush the toilet and you're like, gross, I'm out of here, I'm going to find another stall? Well, that's what this house looked like. It was the house that nobody wanted because it was in such bad shape. And what made it, why it was in bad shape, is the house was full of fleas. So as soon as you walked in, you were attacked. And you know, it didn't, I wouldn't say that it showed very well. But what was even worse was the back half of the house, when you walk through the kitchen area, had a whole separate section. And that whole separate section of house was added on, and it was full of mold. It was just not stable. It was unhealthy to be there. And after I closed on it, I told my men, take that second half of the house and throw it away. Just throw it away. It's all full of mold. The best way to get rid of mold is just to get rid of it. So throw half the house away. And I was left with half the house that was livable, and of course bombed it, got rid of the fleas, paint, carpet, did some repairs, and I put it for rent. Now, you know, when you buy a home that cheap, or that for that price point, it cash flows very well, right? Well, ironically, the lady that was working with me, who was managing my real estate business, her and her husband were splitting up, and I knew her husband, and good guy, made a lot of money, he had 4 dogs, I didn't care, and he wanted to rent the home. So I rented him the home, and I think it was 3 years he was my tenant, paying $900 a month, which was fair market rent at that point, and he was a great tenant. And when he moved out, I had 2 men come to me and said, you know, we're discriminated against because we're gay. Do you care that we're gay? I'm like, I don't care. Why would I care? 2 individuals that both have incomes that want to rent this house. Perfect tenant. And they were there a couple years, and then when they moved out, the house needed some more work, and a friend of my son's wanted to rent it, and we kind of bartered a little bit to fix some of the house up. He moved in, and he was also a good tenant. Now, he was paying $1,500 a month. So that was my last tenant, and he just moved out. So what am I going to ask for this house? Well, I'm going to ask, I went online, and for me to determine what the fair market rent of that house is, I had to look at what my competition is. If I put this on the market, what else is for rent, and what else are tenants looking at? I want to be competitive, because I don't want to sit on this house. I mean, I want to rent it. I want to get a lot of results from my rental. And based on that, I came up with a rent price for this 2-bedroom, 1-bath home, less than 700 square foot in Sarasota, of $1,895 a month. And here's where things get different. Now, back in the day when I owned 18 rental properties, I had properties all the way from Port Charlotte. I owned 2 homes in Port Charlotte, and I owned a home in Seminole, Florida, that actually was my great-grandmother's home that I bought from the estate, and I had that rented as well. So that home was on the radar. So I had to manage all these rental properties all over, and I had a lot on my plate. So I needed some tools to help me rent properties. So in that time, I purchased 2 domain names. One was ahomeforrent.com. I also purchased the domain name aleaseoption.com, and I put homes that I was going to rent on that website to help me rent these homes. I would show the photos of the homes, the rent. I'd have the rental application on the site, and I used those websites as a tool to help me rent these homes. Well, things have changed a lot since that point, and I now have those domain names for sale on GoDaddy. So if you're interested, they are for sale. If you type the domain name, you can go in make me an offer, and I want to get rid of those domain names because I found a better way to rent homes right now. And I'm not an advocate for Zillow. Don't let me stress that that's what I'm thinking, that I'm trying to say. I'm not selling Zillow, but they do have a tool that is very helpful, especially on the rental aspect, where you have more renters than you have homes for rent. I put it on Zillow. I think the expense was like $29 a month, and for that they do a lot. They screen your tenants. If your tenant wants to submit a rental application, the tenant pays, I believe, $29. They fill out the rental application, it comes to you. Zillow even has a program where they will collect the rent via Zelle, I assume, and pay you, and also handle the lease. Wow, I can't argue with that. So that's what I've done. Since that point, since Sunday, I've listed that property. I've had over 600 inquiries, 22 saves, and I have about 5 applications, I believe, right now of people that want to rent it. So without a doubt, I'm going to rent that house. But I want to talk a little bit about making money in real estate. You know, how do you do that, and how do you get rich on rentals? Well, I purchased that home. A lot of people would think that at that time that was a lot of money. And what is that house worth today? Well, here's the big answer. I don't know, and I don't care. It does not matter to me what that property is worth. Well, what if the market crashes? I don't care. You know, that home has been nothing but a slot machine to me, giving off cash from pretty much the first day I rented the property. It has been an excellent investment. As such, I don't plan to ever sell it. Now, I think about a friend of mine who's a mega millionaire. He owns 300 homes, over 300 homes here in Sarasota. And he reflects on a story, or he told me a story where he purchased a rental property, a multifamily property here in Sarasota. Actually, I think it was in Nokomis. And after he purchased the property, the market crashed and the property went down in value over $500,000. So on paper, he was down over $500,000. Now, a lot of people will look at that and say that was a very bad investment. Well, the end of the story was, while the value still went down, the tenants still had to pay rent. And because they had to pay rent, that mortgage was then paid off. And with the mortgage being paid off, now he has a source of income for the rest of his life from an investment that looked like a bad investment because it went down $500,000 in 1 year. So I don't get too excited about market changes, because when you buy real estate, you're buying an asset. And what really gets me, now I'm doing these YouTube videos, and I think I'm doing pretty good. I recently broke 10,000 subscribers. You can see I have over 1 million views on my channel so far, and I'm being really transparent here. I'm making almost $7,500 just on YouTube, walking around talking about my war stories of being a real estate broker here in Sarasota for going on 40 years, or at least been in sales and all that time. And you know, that part of my life is real fun, but you know, I think I deserved it. I've worked really hard at what I've been doing here. I have a lot of experience, and I'm sharing that experience as a resource to help other people. But this is what really gets me about YouTube. Just because it's on YouTube doesn't mean it's always correct or the information is accurate. Now, I did figure out that if you do a lot of videos on YouTube, you can make a lot of money, and I'm doing okay with that. So what kind of bothers me is there's a lot of YouTubers out there, I mean a lot, that are monetizing YouTube for their own profitability. As such, they're providing a lot of data that people want to hear, and that data is the real estate market is going to crash. Don't buy real estate. Real estate is going to keep falling. Bad time to buy. I think that's terrible advice, because I think it's very short-sighted when you look at the whole investment of buying an asset and what that looks like. My friend lost $500,000 on an asset, and it was one of the best investments he made, because he thinks differently than a lot of people. You know, he's not looking at the short term. If you find a good asset and you hang on to it, it could be a good investment. So that's my perspective on when you buy real estate. don't think short term, think about the big picture. A lot of people would not have purchased the home that I bought, would not have done the thing that I've done. I can tell you that's been a very good investment because it throws off cash to me, and it will do so for the rest of my life. And do I really care what the value is? I don't care. It doesn't matter because I bought an asset that's making money. So with that, I hope I've provided you some value in the idea of how to get rich in real estate. Don't follow the crowd. Don't follow those YouTubers that are saying, don't buy, don't buy. I think that's a bad advice. And with that, I am a broker here in the central west coast of Florida. I have a team of agents that work with me, and I am the broker. So if you do reach out to me and you don't reach me, you reach one of my people, you're still getting me. I'm the broker. I'm there trying to help them. Now, we get opportunities all over the state of Florida, but understand we are not looking for silly buyers. And what's a silly buyer? We get about 10 offers a day from silly buyers. And I'm just saying that in a strange way, but what's a silly buyer? Well, the offers start out like this. Dear Troy, my name is blank. I purchase between 5 and 10 properties a month in your area. And as such, I will let you keep the commission if we can negotiate the sale. My offer is this, and it's normally 50 or 70% of value. Now, I have a feeling that all these people are going to the same course because the letters are all basically worded the same except who's sending the email. But you know, they're just silly offers because I get pre-foreclosures all over the state of Florida right now. I work with some attorneys. This week I have 5 closings. One is in Gainesville, one's in Orlando, Tallahassee, Valrico, and one is in Palm Bay. And these are all properties that are priced really well. The seller needs to sell these properties. They're good values, and as such, we price them aggressively. But the seller can't take pretty much less than we ask because they have a mortgage. Their home's in foreclosure. So somebody coming in, oh, I'm just going to offer 75% of market value. They can't pay off their mortgage. We can't do anything with that offer. All those offers go in the spam bot in our folder, and I hope to never hear from them again. But I'm looking for serious investors that would buy properties like the one that I purchased and overlook the issues that are associated with a property like that. It takes work, and the way you make money in real estate is you solve problems. And that's exactly what I did. I solved problems. I went into an opportunity most people wouldn't see or wouldn't value, and I changed it up. And I also look at it differently. I don't care where the value is because I bought an asset that will give me cash the rest of my life. So we are always looking for people that want to purchase property, but we're not looking for I'm going to pay 75% of market value. That's not a buyer, that's a dreamer, and we're not looking for dreamers. The best opportunity is if you have money from a 1031. Love 1031s. We certainly help a lot of people with a 1031 in exchanging their asset, or they have proof of funds. If you're looking for any property, and in fact, if you're looking for investment and you don't own your first home, just buy your first home. Don't overthink it like I did, and keep that house. Don't sell it. Keep it as an asset, and then buy your second home and your third home, and keep them too. That's certainly a get-rich slow program that has proven to work. So that's one opportunity if you're looking to buy. We're here to help, but we don't want these silly buyers. There's no shortage of bottom feeders that want something for nothing. That really doesn't ever work out in life. You're going to have to work at some level, but we're looking for smart buyers. I handle these pre-foreclosures, so if you do reach out to me, my name, Troy Funk, TroyFunk.com. You may or may not get me, but if you get one of my colleagues and you're looking at property anywhere in the state of Florida, go online, register, provide your information, and start looking at properties. Start favoriting properties that you like. If you hit the little favorite button, it lets us know that it's a property that you want more information on, and we'll keep in touch. Now, if I find that as the broker that we have a buyer, for example, let's say that they're looking for a property in Nokomis, Florida, and they're very clear on what they're looking for as a buyer. Now, I'm going to also let my agents know that, hey, I have a pre-foreclosure coming up in that market area, let me make sure that our buyer knows about that property as well. I don't do it in reverse order. I don't talk about the foreclosures that I have. I work with the buyers that we're currently working with, and if they are clear on what their vision is, then we let them know what's possible based on their criteria. So if you're looking to buy property in Florida, certainly reach out to me. We can help you get rich slowly in real estate. And I hope this information has been helpful. If it is, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you on my next video.